On today's show, Joel Embiid has the most pressure on him going into next season of the NBA. Or maybe it's Anthony Davis. We'll debate on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You're Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On NBA your first listen today. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Take us with you. Like the video on YouTube and comment anything below. Let us know who you think has the most pressure on them going into next season. And joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, Pat the Designer?
What does "ain't do none" mean? What does that mean? What is Counted Up talking about? What, ain't
Today,
do none?
We'll talk about the players that have the most pressure on them, including, we'll talk about Joel Embiid, who I think has the most pressure, and Pat thinks it's Anthony Davis. We got a couple other players we'll mention too that has a bunch of pressure. We'll also play Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including Tyrese Halliburton. He ain't done none in the group project to win the gold. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some other Olympic things as well. We talk about the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. But let's start here. Pat and I are texting back and forth. We go, all right, what are you going to talk about tonight? And I start looking through the sites, and you're like, all right, well, the schedule comes out on Thursday, and so we won't see it before we record this.
We won't see it
before. We're like, all right, we got to talk about something. I go, all right. Who has the most pressure going into the NBA? The first name that came to my head, as soon as we decided we're going to talk about who has the most pressure, Joel Embiid. The process is complete, right? They've got Embiid, they've got Maxey, they've got Paul George. You got 3 all-star level players on your team right now. Okay, it's time. He just played in the Olympics. He already won his MVP. That's behind him. Check that personal accomplishment off. He's never been past the second round. He's actually lost 3 Game 7s in the second round. Never been to a conference finals. They've got Maxey, Caleb Martin, Paul George, Embiid, Caleb Martin. Your bench is looking a little suspect, but you got Drummond.
The double Caleb Martin is nuts.
Which one? Kelly Oubre, Caleb Martin? Did I say Caleb Martin twice?
You said Caleb Martin twice, but it was literally like they've got Embiid, Caleb Martin, all these much better players. Caleb Martin. It was like, what's the emphasis on Caleb Martin here?
He's a playoff riser, Pat.
All right, Pat.
Well, hey, he's been to an NBA Finals. How about that?
He has been to an NBA Finals.
A guy with NBA Finals experience on their team. How about that? To me, I think it's on him because now it's like, all right, what's next? You want to be one of the best players in the NBA. You think you're the best player in the NBA. You scored more points than you played minutes in the NBA last year on average. And now it's like, all right, what else is there to prove? Giannis got his title. Jokic got his title. It's time for Embiid now. The pressure is on him to make it past this second round.
No, 100%. I think here's my thing with Joel Embiid right now. And if we're being honest, he kind of finally faced his bugaboo. I said bugaboo. Everybody calm down. No, Russell. No. Which one was that? RG3. RG3 did that one.
With the croissant?
No. God, I wish this was Locked On NFL. We would have to talk about that. No, but I think here's the thing with the Joel Embiid story right now, right? Like you finally faced Nikola Jokic. And in a sense, when you were going at him, you were dominating. We haven't seen Embiid. There's kind of been this stigma of like he's ducking Jokic whenever you guys play. There's always an injury. There's always something that happens, right? Kind of the KD LeBron story that was going on for a little while there. But now you face that and you see that's kind of the competition that you're going to have to go up against if you get to an NBA Finals. Joel Embiid looked really good against that. I think here's the thing. Embiid for the first time, why I agree with you that there is this pressure on him is that there is somebody else out there who you have an expectation on. There's never been anybody next to Joel Embiid who I expected to do something. You know what I expected James Harden to do? Exactly what he did. Exactly what he's done his entire career. Disappear in the playoffs. That was my expectation. The hope was that when James Harden disappears, Joel Embiid will be there healthy and he will be able to take up that mantle. Ever since you moved on from Jimmy Butler, and I'm not saying Jimmy Butler gets you to an NBA Finals, but it has seemed like you basically said, Embiid, you're the guy we'll figure the rest of it out, which is great, but you've never figured the rest of it out. You've had Tobias Harris chained to the corner so that he can shoot threes over there. You haven't allowed Tyrese Maxey to get off of the bench until finally last season, where it's like, oh my God, this dude can play basketball. We all knew that except for Doc Rivers, apparently. And you know, you rolled out James Harden, who your game plan was when James Harden finally falls off, Joel Embiid will be healthy and ready to go. Guess what? He wasn't healthy and he wasn't ready to go. So I agree with you that the process has the pressure on him, because finally there is a guy who, while he still has that same level of pressure, Paul George has the same questions on him, but there's somebody out there besides Joel Embiid with George and Maxey that you can have expectations on, and I don't think he's had that in his career.
James Harden did have the expectations, but we all kind of in the back of our heads were like, all right, you're really going to put together James Harden, Doc Rivers, and Joel Embiid and expect to make an NBA Finals or even get to the third round? Like, even on this show, the two of us were like, I don't buy that. Like, you got to show me. And it ended up being injuries and all that, of course. But yeah, to me, I think it's Joel Embiid. I think he has the most pressure on him because he's the best player that has gone the least far in the NBA playoffs so far.
No, for sure. But I think it's also this as well, right? There's an expectation of health. There's an expectation of, you know, the pressure that happens in the playoffs. I don't think that Embiid has really fallen short with the playoff pressure. We've just never seen Embiid healthy for the playoffs. So I do think that it falls on not just Joel Embiid, but I think it falls on the Philadelphia 76ers as well to find a way to get this team healthily to the playoffs so that they're in a position to go out there and be the best version of themselves. And I'm not sitting here saying, you know, do the load management and all that stuff, but I do think that there is something. Take a little bit of the pressure off of Embiid's shoulders. Take a little bit, have those games where you say, Paul George, this is your game. Go out there and dominate. Have those games where you say, Tyrese Maxey, those two guys get hurt a lot. This is your time. Even if there's a little bit more of the pressure on Maxey where you say, hey, listen, we want to see you go out there and be the ball handler, but also be a dominant scorer on this team, so that Joel Embiid and Paul George can be the crunch time moments. While it didn't work as well, that's essentially what we saw the Bulls do with DeMar DeRozan, where it was like, Kobe White, go out there, cook as much as you can. In the fourth quarter, guess who we're going to? We're going to the guy who's been missed the fourth quarter. We're going to believe in that. There is a path where that works, where it's not, you're not involved in the entire game, but in the moments we need you most, we're saving you for those moments.
I love the Bulls reference, the completely unnecessary Bulls reference.
Got to. I don't have much time left, so I got to get them as many in as I can.
Oh, you had to bring that. He had to bring that up. Go check Pat the Designer's social media.
Or Locked On Bulls.
You think Anthony Davis has the most pressure on him? Convince me it's him and not Joel Embiid.
Here's my conversation on Anthony Davis. There's almost this conversation around Anthony Davis like he's not one of the top power forwards in the NBA. There's this conversation on Anthony Davis like he is not supposed to be, or he was not supposed to be, the focal point of what this Lakers rebuild was supposed to have happen. I think that if the Lakers end up struggling over the next few seasons, it is not on LeBron James's shoulder. It is on Anthony Davis' shoulder. And this is a guy who is from Chicago, who is not a LeBron lover, shall I say, right? I am not somebody who is, you know, LeBron James is the GOAT. I think that he has a case for it, but I don't subscribe to the LeBron James following of like, no matter what LeBron does, LeBron is right. But I think in this situation, when you look at a guy like LeBron James, he's done everything in his power to try and put a team on the floor for Anthony Davis to take over. And he just won't. He literally, like, whether it's injury or even when he's healthy, just the amount of deference to LeBron that we've seen in a season where even realistically speaking, this has been his probably second best season as a Laker that he's coming off of. We saw him be much more healthy. We saw him do more. Build on that. Don't just stay in the same spot where you were at, because if Anthony Davis is healthy like he was last season, I believe he played finally above 68 games last season, right? If he finally is as healthy as he was, and he is the AD that we have seen in the past. And by the way, the AD this season that we saw was Pelicans AD, defensively sound, somebody who was a rim protector, somebody who could play the passing lane, somebody who could, while still being an offensive juggernaut, be a big man who could facilitate the basketball as well, where things could run through him. I think the pressure is on AD for the Lakers to not have pressure on them moving forward, because if he doesn't take that step this season, what are you going to just run it back with 41-year-old LeBron and say this is the answer?
The pressure's on AD to be the best player. And yeah, I think that at a certain point, I mean, I don't know if we in the media will ever stop doing this with LeBron looking as good as he has. I mean, he was the MVP of the Olympics, but it's eventually not going to be his fault if the Lakers don't go on. It's got to be on the guy in his prime right now in Anthony Davis. And so I'm with you. He has some pressure. I still think Joel Embiid has more. And so let us know in the comment section who has more pressure on them next season, Embiid or Anthony Davis. Coming up, who else has pressure on them in the NBA? I got one on a team. Guy hasn't won a ring yet. And this may be his last chance. Tell you who that is coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Go check out FanDuel for all the props and odds and spreads and things that you can use to get in on the action. All kinds of stuff with FanDuel. Go see all the NFL stuff. There's all kinds of NFL things with games actually happening, or preseason games actually happening. It's crazy. Your Chicago Bears and my Cincinnati Bengals are playing on Saturday.
Yeah, a little joint practice, baby. Let's do it.
On a preseason game.
The Bengals a joint practice? Is there odds on that?
The Bengals are a 6.5 point underdog against the Bears in this thing on Saturday.
They're not playing their starters already. They said it, so that's why.
Yeah, right. And so you could bet on that if you're so inclined. That'd be kind of crazy. There's also WNBA stuff, all kinds of WNBA stuff. They have Caitlin Clark odds. They have Angel Reese odds and things like that. That's pretty fun. Go check out all those games and everything. They have boosts and bonus all off season long for the NBA and then all kinds of sports as they're going on. Go check out FanDuel.com. Go see what's available for you at FanDuel.com.
Count it up.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being an everydayer, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Make your second listen today, Locked On Mavs. We talked all about who should be the third best player on the Mavericks this week. We talked about if it's finals or bust for the Mavs this week. What are you guys talking about on Locked On Bulls?
Ooh, Locked On Bulls. We are talking about the latest around Billy Donovan. There's a rumor out there that maybe the Bulls believe he's a good coach, but not the coach.
Oh, there you go. Some rumors. Go check out Locked On Bulls or Locked On Mavs. Make that your second listen today. All right, Pat. We're talking about players with the most pressure on them. To me, if I'm going after Joel Embiid, I think my next player with the most pressure on them going into the season, and maybe even more than Joel Embiid because the clock is ticking and this man knows a lot about time. Damian Lillard, 34 years old with the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think this may be one of his last seasons, his last chance to win an NBA title. That's a lot of pressure. You start to look at players his size. He's 6'2". Players older than the oldest players, 6'3" and under, to average 20 points in a season. You ready for this list? Over the age of 33, or the oldest players, 6'3" and under. Steph Curry last season, 26 points at age 35.
Shout out to him.
Jerry West at 35 averaged 20 points. Lenny Wilkins at 35 averaged 20 points.
Dog.
Steph Curry the year before last at 34 averaged 29 points. And Jerry West. But Steph Curry is the only one after the age 34 to average 20 points. It falls off fast for these small guards. And I think for Damian Lillard, who was a player last year, was one of the oldest players to ever average over 20. He averaged 24 last year at 33 years old for the Bucks. I think time is not on his side. Brook Lopez, their starting center, is 36 years old. Chris Middleton is 33 and played 88 games in the last 2 seasons combined. This team's clock is ticking. They've got Doc Rivers as their coach, and I think this is the last chance for Damian Lillard to win a title.
President-elect yet? Doc Rivers talked.
You remember that story about
anybody
him
who's running for president? I disagree.
Doc was wrong about the border. I mean,
was Doc talking about the border? Doc, you're supposed to be talking about the perimeter, not the border. It's different. It's different.
He's like, no, Joe, it was a 3-point line.
Joe, you got to play up. You got to play up on the border, Joe. You got to have National Guard on the border, hands up. You got to play up. It's not Kamala's fault.
Joe Biden looks over and goes, I thought Lawrence Fishburne was coming. I thought we were getting the actor for Doc Rivers, not.
When did Doc Rivers get tall? thought it was Lawrence Fishburne this whole time. That's great. That's phenomenal. But here's I don't believe Damian Lillard has a high amount of pressure on him.
None?
No.
He's never won a title. He's 34.
I'll tell you why. In most people's minds, Damian Lillard is Charles Barkley.
He's not that good.
Probably not that good.
Barkley won an MVP. But he's in the top 75. So.
One of those guys who, I'll be 100% honest with you. When careers are, I'll take it back. Charles Barkley is a little bit disrespectful to Chuck because of how good Chuck was. To me, Damian Lillard is a Gary Payton type of player.
Sure.
Where his career has gone. Because Gary Payton has an NBA championship. We don't think about it. Because it's not the one that he was the major focal point on. I think at this point, if Dame goes out there and wins a championship, now not to say that he wouldn't be a focal point of this team, but I do think that it would be one of those situations where you would kind of go, oh yeah, Dame does have a championship 10, 15 years down the line. Because I think at this point, we just think of the Dame that we once saw, and those expectations are gone. You were waiting for him to take that next step. And here's my thing, right? Now, some of this goes to the voting that has been done in the NBA. It does. And I'm not saying that it is all Dame's fault. I believe Dame is one of the most underrated point guards of his generation, and there's no question about that. But, Dame, you chose to stay in Portland. You chose to stay in wine country. You chose to stay with that team when that team had zero future, and you said, well, they can pay me the most, so I want to be out there. You chose to be out there because that's where you wanted to be. So guess what? The second that Damian Lillard made the decision to re-sign in Portland for the second time, if I'm not mistaken, on that last contract, wasn't that the second time that he got that contract? Everyone around the NBA world went, oh, I don't care anymore. He wants to be there.
That's it.
This is the life that he wants to have. So there's no pressure in my mind on Damian Lillard to win an NBA championship. The only pressure that's on Damian Lillard is the pressure that he has put on himself.
Right. How could there not be pressure when Damian Lillard, part of a 3-team trade, gets traded from the Blazers to the Bucks? Oh my God, it's Dame and Giannis. And now we've seen them one season in injury-ridden playoffs. And now, all right, here's your shot. And those two guys together are not going to get anywhere. Like there's got to be pressure on him.
NBA fans don't care.
It's right? not. It's not from. I don't think pressure is only from the fans. I think there's pressure on himself. Pressure on.
Did you care when Chuck, Scotty, and Hakeem teamed up? No, you didn't. Well, you weren't old enough. But for the NBA fans who are old enough, right? I guess that was a wild thing to point your way. Like you. Remember when you were?
You're not older. You're not that much older than me.
No, it's not you specifically, but I'm saying, right? Did the NBA world care?
Oh, the royal.
When those three paired up? No, because you were like, oh, there's a lot of Ben Gay in that locker room. Like, there's a lot of icy hot going on.
We cared about when Gary Payton and Karl Malone went to the Lakers, though.
Kinda.
No,
you cared because you were a Laker fan.
No, people really cared.
I mean, I get you, but like it was one of those things where it was like, yeah, but you're taking old guys and you're pairing them with the young buck that's dominant.
Right.
Like that's not what's happening here. This is not old guys getting paired with the young buck that's dominant. This is an older player getting paired with another player who is entering his older stages, who is very dominant and still is very dominant. But I just don't believe that there is that much of the care for Dame was gone. The care for Dame was gone when Dame finally and listen. It's not a begrudging thing today. Get your bag.
First of all, you used young buck on purpose. Second of all, Bucks fans expect them to be contenders, right?
Yeah, I'm sure Bucks fans do. Bucks fans expect Giannis to be a contender every year.
Yeah, but then there's pressure on Damian Lillard.
Sure, but I'm not. But
to deliver for Giannis, because he's going to do his work.
When we're talking about an immense amount of pressure, and because we're at the end of this segment, I'm gonna get to my guy before we get into Count It Up because we can't count it up short. When you're talking about an immense amount of pressure, and I'm going to change my guy, actually, because the guy I was going to go with was Luka Doncic, and that was the guy that I felt, makes an NBA title, but there's a lot of time with that, right? There's still time to get back to a title. Usually, and I think here's also the thing, when you're that level of a player, you usually find your way back, right? Like he's one of the top 5 players in the NBA. Yeah. There's usually some point where there's a team built for you, or you find your way back into the NBA Finals. So I don't think that
KD did, LeBron did, yeah.
Right, exactly. So I don't think
Curry
that
did.
level of pressure is as high. I think there's pressure on a young man like Anthony Edwards right now. People are attaching the name Michael Jordan to Anthony Edwards, mostly facial,
Wow.
because
Oh,
of what the
his genealogical
looks,
history.
you know what I mean? But what that does is now the Ja Morant's being the
Jeff
face of the
Grant,
NBA
23andMe.
is gone. The I guess Victor Wembanyama still has some of that, but when you look at Zion Williamson,
Zion Williamson and porn star.
when you look at
Only
that
brought
guy,
up his name for that.
you're not sitting here. Well, because he was so much the face of the league, they were like, make him the cover of 2K.
Yeah.
Like he was supposed to be the face of this NBA. That is not happening. None of these young guys have taken that mantle as the face of the league. I think Luka kind of has tried to, but the NBA has kind of bucked back on that. But on the flip side, that wasn't a Bucks joke either. But on the flip side, last season, you saw Anthony Edwards do something that most of these young guys don't do. Not only did he make it to a Western Conference final, he took on the mantle of saying, I'm going to guard one of the hardest players to guard in the NBA. Very Jordan-like, right? So people are attributing the Jordan stuff to him. He goes into that playoff series and said, I just want to kill everything in front of me. I have no friends on this court. When we're off the court, that's a different situation. All of those things fit into the storyline of what people's expectation are. And so I think that the pressure on Anthony Edwards is going to be immense heading into next season, because guess what? It is very hard to keep up a Jordan level expectation. You want to know how we know? Jordan took time off from maintaining a Jordan level expectation.
Because he was suspended for gambling.
I mean, we're not going to talk about that. Some things that happened down there. But he played baseball for 2 years, and I heard that he got pretty good at that swing. Couldn't hit a curveball though.
Let us know in the comment section. They did an Oscar worthy movie though. Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the
Have you
comment
watched
section.
it as an adult?
Space Jam? Yeah.
Have you watched Space Jam as an adult? It's tough. It's tough.
It's a Looney Tunes movie.
When
what do you
he
want?
no, because Looney Tunes is phenomenal. We're not going to besmirch Looney Tunes on this podcast. When he's like holding Tweety in his hand, but he's not looking at all at Tweety in his hand. That's a tough moment.
The guy with the tennis ball job that day that was holding the stick with the tennis ball that he's supposed to look at. That was not in there. It was
Jordan's
not in the
like,
island.
you okay?
Yeah. Just looking the other way. Coming up, it's the most interesting, fun things in the NBA. It's Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things, including Tyrese Halliburton. He ain't do nothing for the group project. Which NBA players did nothing for the group project? We'll talk about that and more coming up.
Zion Williamson and porn star.
Oh, we don't have an ad here.
You didn't click the double one. Both of those at the same time was priceless.
We're a mess. We're a mess over here.
Big chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star. Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
I'm fitting the 80s style rap right now that you were doing in there.
Team USA wins gold in the Olympics. Congrats to them. Tyrese Halliburton got a gold medal and posted this on Instagram. When you ain't do none on the group project and still get an A with the medal emoji. My question is,
Count it up.
which player in the NBA didn't really do anything in the group project but still got credit? I've got two. I'll give you one while you think about it.
Christian Laettner, easily.
Christian Laettner on Team USA. Christian Laettner is a great one.
Bro, like Christian Laettner, you know what the worst part is? He tried. He was like, can I play? No. All right.
No.
My bad.
Who are you playing ahead of? Classic one that I think a recent one. Let's do a recent one. Kristaps Porzingis played 7 out of 19 games in the playoffs and got a title. He played 2.5 finals games.
Disagree.
Yeah.
Because those 2.5 finals games, we were sitting there like, I'm sorry.
The first half of game one.
What was? Come on, dog. Knicks Christian Laettner, or I'm sorry, Christian Laettner. Here we go. Knicks Kristaps Porzingis was back.
I was at the games. I was there.
You can have your beef. You can have your beef. Kristaps Porzingis was making a difference in every.
This is not a Chicagoland the beef. This is not Carmi. I'm not making sandwiches over here. I was doing the bear joke.
I got you, but
first half of game one, second half he didn't do a lot, and then game two he scored 12 points, played 23 minutes, and then game 5 he was just hobbling around there. He barely played in that one. He played 2.5 games. Played one half of one game really well.
Who got that ring now?
Oh, the Celtics.
Who got that ring? I'm just saying.
The confetti was falling on me as I did my show.
Do you still wake up at night looking up, just go, ah!
Still taste it in my mouth.
Whoa.
I got another one though, a classic one. A classic one we forget about. Do you remember when the Hawks all got All-Stars and it was Al Horford, Paul Millsap, Jeff Teague, and then Kyle Korver got an All-Star nod?
Yeah, no, 100%. You know why I remember that? Because if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Doc Rivers the coach?
No, Budenholzer.
Was Budenholzer the coach in that one too?
Of the Hawks. He was never. Yeah. Kyle Korver was an All-Star, scoring 12 points a game or 12 points a game on the Hawks.
I mean, listen, Zdronis Ilgauskas was an All-Star. Well.
Jamal McGlure is always the worst one I always look back on.
If we're going towards some All-Stars, there's been some All-Stars who have been like the other guy that also went. Yeah, Joakim Noah went with Derrick Rose. There was some other options. You know what I'm saying?
Tyrese Halliburton responded to his lack of playing time in a fun, joking way. Seemed like he handled it well. Jason Tatum did not. Neither did his mother. And Steve Kerr explained that Jason Tatum's benching is a result of a math problem. My question is, do you believe in the math?
No. And I'm gonna be real with you. And this is tough to say about somebody who I think is a phenomenal NBA coach. Steve Kerr is the epitome of it's gonna work that I've ever seen
shrug
as a Team USA coach. Like when Coach Krzyzewski was coaching Team USA, you could tell the scheme that was going into Team USA. You could tell, right, okay, this is why they want to have this lineup out here versus Spain because of the size matchup and because of how they're able to shoot and blah, 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 right? When Chuck Daly was out there, right, you could see the motivation that he was trying to do, what he was doing for the players to try and get them to focus in because that was a different era. There was no competing. You just had to let them know, like, hey, you need to compete because you need to take this seriously. Steve Kerr basically said, it don't matter what five I throw out there, we're going to win. And so because of that, Jason Tatum was your least played guy who was out there, who already had an Olympic medal under his belt, who already was hooping for an Olympic medal, who already has shown you that he can handle that level of pressure, who is coming off of an NBA championship. No, Steve Kerr's got some weird beef, or whoever's on that staff. Maybe it's not Steve Kerr. Whoever's on that staff that's doing most of the rotation work there has some weird beef with Jason Tatum. And you know what? I'm not going to begrudge Jason Tatum for struggling when you're playing every other day, because that's how basketball players are. It's about consistency. It's about a rhythm. That's how basketball works. You don't just turn it on and turn it off when you're that level of player. I mean, listen, you can, but it's much more difficult when you're sitting on the bench for an entire day and then they're just like, all right, 48 minutes, start shooting.
The problem was his jump shot turned off. He missed all 16 of the jumpers that he took in Olympic play. He also shot 26% on threes in the finals. I mean, he has not shot very well. And so his decision was to put in a Devin Booker, to put in Anthony Edwards that did things differently, that hit more shots than what Jason Tatum was going to do and gave them different things. I don't know that equates to a math problem, but maybe the math problem was just 0/16. And that was what he looked at and said, hey, Tatum's not making any shots. I need some guys that are at least going to knock down some jumpers because we've got the shot creation handled with LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Joel Embiid and Steph Curry.
You know what
they needed something else. Tatum wouldn't give him something else.
The problem is, which team does Steve Kerr coach in the NBA?
Sometimes he coaches the Warriors.
Yeah, so they're firing that thing up from three. That's all he wanted Jason Tatum to do: be a set shooter, stand in the corner, fire that thing up.
That's what you do on an Olympic team.
Yeah, it's not Jason Tatum.
What do we talk about Olympic Melo all the time? He just hit a bunch of jumpers, and we were like, man, Melo on the Lakers, he could do the Olympic Melo thing because he could stand in the court, hit jumper. We're like, that's what you do.
I mean, but Olympic Melo could also hit every shot that NBA Melo could hit.
And Jason Tatum did not. He didn't hit any jumpers.
Yeah, but Jason Tatum is also somebody who creates his jump shot based off of his ability to get to the rim as well.
Well, he created that successfully 0 out of 16 times.
Listen, he wasn't getting to the rim. He wasn't driving. He was supposed to be that catch and shoot guy.
That was his math problem, and all the Celtics fans will get mad at me about it.
Terrible.
I'm fine with it. They're mad at me.
Never am I with the Celtics fans. You know, I've had Celtics beef in my chat ever since I started being on Locked On NBA with you. And I'm not gonna lie to you. How they did Jason Tatum was wrong in this scenario. Now, mom's coming at relax, mom. Like he's still getting paid millions. Chill out.
$300 million.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's not doing. He's an NBA champion.
Just won a title.
I mean, he's copying a lot of people. I don't know what that is.
Anything is possible, Pat.
What did he say? He didn't say anything is possible. He's like, we did it. We did it.
Oh yeah, that was the other one. No, he did the anything is possible. He did the anything is possible later. He did all the things. Let us know in the comments section. Do you believe in Steve Kerr's math problem? Which player in the NBA has the most pressure on them? Guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA. Go check out Locked On Mavs. Go check out Locked On Bulls. Make that your second listen today. And guys, thanks for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye-bye.